Hi everyone, I want to thank you for joining our Property Cloud Service demo today. I'm Jimena Mejarado from Melissa Data, and joining me today is Data Quality Analyst Kevin Ubeube. He's going to show us how to use our Property Cloud Service that allows you to access comprehensive property and mortgage data for over 140 million records, including 165 fields containing owner info, property values, current sale info, building info, and more. But before we get started, I want to encourage everyone to submit questions today. You can type those in at any time during the presentation, and towards the end of the webinar, we'll get to answering some of those. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can, but if we aren't able to get to your question, Kevin will be happy to answer it offline. This webinar will be recorded, so if you miss anything or if you want to forward it to someone, you will be able to do so. All right, let's get started, and here is Kevin.
All right. So hello everyone, and thank you all for joining our webinar today. My name is Kevin, and I'm a data quality analyst here at Melissa Data. So just jumping right in, here's the agenda. First, we're going to talk about the property web service and what it provides. We will then look at the various tools that you can use to access our service. And then at the end, we'll go through a couple of demos so you see those tools in action. So what our property web service offers is comprehensive property and mortgage data. This is a service that contains data for over 140 million properties in over 3,000 counties, and is capable of returning 165 different data fields. So just to give a quick overview of what type of data we could return back like the owner data, basically like the owner's name and address. We could return back the parcel data like the range, section, township, zoning, size of the lot. We return back building data. So how many bedrooms does a house have, baths, the number of stories in the building, or whether it has a pool or a basement. We could turn back the values data, so that's data such as the appraised or market values of the property. We could turn back the current sale information, so when was the property last sold, who was the seller, and what was the date of the sales transaction. And then down here, we could turn back the mortgage or the current trust deed information, so who's the name of the lender, the type of mortgage loan, what was the amount. And so that's just an overview of what our service can return. One additional field that I noticed customers find useful is the property indicator field. So this field that the web service returns back, this indicates like what the property is used for. So basically, is it a single family residence? Is it a farming or agricultural land? Is it a hospital, etc.? So with all that data, you can start to see how this would be a valuable tool for people in the real estate market. As a cloud web service, it's very accessible for investors, insurance agents, and real estate and people in the real estate market. So as a cloud web service, so for those looking for a tool to analyze trends or study an area, we can provide that for you. In just a few minutes, when we get to the demos, you'll see what we offer. We have a variety of tools and services that make it easy for you to access the service. And then another benefit is that we maintain the data and update it weekly. Basically, the data we receive comes from the county's clerk and recorder offices, whose job is to record these deeds. We take the latest one, and then we combine it with the county assessor's data. So when the county assessor assesses the value of the property, they take into account the characteristics of the building, the improvements on the land. So basically, that answers how we get our data. So when you're using our property web service, generally you'll need an address of the property that you want to look up. Specifically, you want a valid address. We do offer address checking solutions. We're a CAS certified vendor, so we do offer services that can check addresses for you and tell you if they're good or not. Basically, it's just good practice to check first if the address is correct and valid first before looking it up in the property web service. Now, besides the address, there's another way you can look up properties, and that's using the FIPS code and the APN. So for those not familiar with those terms, the FIPS code is a number that corresponds with county. Every county has its own FIPS code. And then you also have there's the APN, which stands for the assessor's parcels number. Basically, it's a number generated by the county assessor and it's given to a property. Every property that the assessor has recorded has its own unique parcel number. But something to note is that every county in the U.S. has their own assessor or appraiser, and therefore every county can have basically a different parcel numbering system. This is also compounded by the fact that the county may have also multiple different numbering systems. For those who look into this, you'll see like some counties have a map number, a parcel number, or account number, and this just makes looking up properties difficult if you're using this method. Because of this, we usually recommend that you stick to using an address. Again, we provide services that can take a look at your addresses and validate for them for you. So regarding how you can use our property web service, how you can get the data, we provide various options. The first one I want to talk about is our web service. So this whole property web service is available on the cloud. You could access it using SOAP, XML, and REST. Basically, if you want to use the web service, this is more suited for developers or programmers who have like an application or website they're developing, and they want to control like when they want to get the property data. Basically, if you want to go down this route, we provide sample code, and it's available on our wiki.melissadata.com. So that's a programmatic approach to accessing the data. All the other ways you can access the data will in turn use this web service. But basically, we do have plugins available for Excel and Salesforce that take out the programming work. And basically, all you have to do is pass in an address, and then it will look up the property information for you. So again, we have plugins for Excel and Salesforce. You just give it an address, and then you can look up the property information that way. And then for those guys, those ETL guys out there, business intelligence, we do provide an SSIS component. So you could put that component into your data flow. Basically, those guys probably have like a database of addresses that they want to run through. So basically, you could take those addresses, you validate them, and then you can run them through our property component in SSIS and get the property information back. And then lastly, we do offer a list service. So you could go online to our website, and then what you could do is you could create your own property list. Basically, you specify like which area you're interested in, zip code or city and radius. And then what you could do is you specify which parameters you want to get properties based on. So you can look up properties based on their property type or what range of what range the properties sell for, and so forth. We'll take a look at a selection of these right now. So just to get out of the slides. So the first one I want to show is our Excel plugin. What I have up here on the screen is an Excel sheet, and basically this sheet contains addresses in here. So basically, once I have the Listware plugin installed, what I could do is I go to my Listware tab, go to US, and then what I could do is just run this through the Listware plugin. Let me give this a. Let me bring up Excel again. So basically, I'm just going to select these addresses. What I'm going to do is run them through Listware. So I select my range, basically which columns I want to process. To get the property information, all you need to do is select the check, map in my fields. You can see Listware already mapped them in. And then down here, when you get to this section, you can specify which property fields you want to turn on. Now, one thing to know is that you see here, this Listware for Excel plugin returns back only a subset of the fields that the property web service can return. You see here there's 20 fields, 20 property fields that this plugin return. The web service returns back 165. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. If you want all those fields, you're going to have to access the web service directly, or use our SSIS component, which we'll be looking at next. So just going ahead, one thing, you could pick and choose which fields you want. So there's a checkbox next to each field. But once you got that set in, just basically process them through. And then once you see, the nice thing about this plugin is that you could give an address, it'll check the addresses for you. So you can see all these addresses here, we're good. And then I get back the property information, so I can see the parcel number, see the property owner's address, property value, tax amount, size of the property, square footage, living space, square footage, when the property was built, how many bedrooms, how many total rooms, mortgage data. And you can see how it's pretty easy to run to get your property data back when you're using this Excel plugin. So that's listware for Excel. Moving on. Again, we do provide an SSIS component. So I'm just switching over to SSIS. And basically, in our property component, what you could do is, if I bring up the dialog box here, you could pass in an address key. And basically, the address key is 11-digit zip code. Basically, that's the 5 digits, and then the +4, and then the 2 for the delivery point. So once you validate an address using one of our address checking solutions, you get an address key back. And then you can pass that address key through our property component and then look up properties that way. So this component will let you look up properties by the address key or the address, and also by the FIPS and APN. But over here, so once you go to the output, you can turn on, pick and choose which fields you want. And then here, as you can see there's like a lot more fields here. So in this component, you get back all the fields from the property web service. So there's the parcel, the property address, owner information, values, current sale, current trust deed information, prior sale. You have a lot data, square footage, building, and then you can see there's like, you can pick and choose which fields you want. There's a lot of fields in here. So you configure that up. You process it through. So in SSIS, you could pull records from a file or a database. Just in this example, I'm pulling out a couple hundred, and then once you run them through, then you get back the property data. So you can see here is in this data flow, we get back our results. So for each address key, we're getting property data back. And you can see this component is returning back all 165 data fields. So that's the SSIS component. The last thing I want to talk about is we do offer a list service. So if you just want to generate lists very quickly, what you could do is you could go to our website. If you go to www.melissdata.com, go to direct mail, property. Basically, it'll take you to this page. And then if you have an account with us, you just log in, and it'll take you to this page down here. So you'll see this page. You create a list of properties. Basically, you specify a zip code, for example, or you could do radius or county. But just to see, for example, you could type in the zip code, and basically you can see the number of records that you will get back before you order the list. And then you can fine-tune your selection by pick and choosing which parameters you want. So I want to find all properties that are single-family residence. You could do that by checking this, or any other various types. So if you want to look for properties that are, let's see, you want to look for all agricultural farming land, you could do that. You specify property values by their description, the characteristics of the property, selling price, selling date, mortgage amount, mortgage date, loan type, owner type. So like one of the things here is you can specify you want to look for all properties where the owner is an absentee. You could do that. So you can see here, it's like a lot of options here to specify a lot of parameters you can select to fine tune your list. And then you get your accounts back. And then if that number of accounts is all right, then you can just order the list. And then there you go. So for more information about the property web service, you could also go visit our wiki. So if you go to wiki.melissdata.com, you go to cloud services. You want to look for property. And then you'll see there we have a page here. It's like a central hub for the property information, more technical stuff. So you can see we have a reference guide. And this reference guide will go into more details of each field. What does each field return, and what codes it can return. So if you want to look up, this is a very good reference guide. So if you want to know what's the code for a single-family residence, You can search it up in this guide. So like the property indicator field, you want to know which code corresponds to single-family residence. The reference guide is where you want to go. It'll talk about what each field is capable of returning. We also provide sample code, as I mentioned earlier in that slide. And then one other thing is if you go to our main website. Now, some people are curious, what's the level of data that we are able to return? Like, how often can we return back a data field? If you go to go to data quality on our main website, go to property, and then you want to look at the product sheet over here in the resources tab. And so this product sheet gives a summary of what the web service can do. But down here on the second page, it'll give you back percentages and represent the frequency of how often we have that data in our database. So you see there's like a list of all the fields that we return, and then in there you'll see the percentages associated with them. And this is across the US. So that pretty much brings me to the end of my portion. Just to go back to the slides now.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Now we're going to move on to the Q&A portion of the webinar. If you have any questions, please type those in right now. I want to remind you that I will be sending out a link to a recording of today's webinar. You should expect to receive it via email by the end of this week. So I'll give you guys a few seconds to type in any questions you guys have. Okay, I have one question. What is the source of the data?
So that's a good question. As I mentioned earlier, we get our data from the county recorders, and well, each county has like a recorder's office, or sometimes called the clerk's office. But their job is to record the deeds, and the deed tells like who owns the property. So basically, we get that data, and then also besides the deeds data, we also have the assessor's data. So each county also has an assessor. Their job is to calculate the property taxes. So basically, when they're calculating the property taxes, they need to take into account some characteristics of the property, like how many buildings or how big is the property, and that's how they assess the value. We get our data from them as well. So again, basically we get our data from each county's. From each county, we have data for over 3,000 counties in the U.S. Some of you may be wondering if we have data in Puerto Rico. We don't have that, but for the rest of the U.S., we do have the data.
Okay, thank you. What is the cost?
So I'm not a sales guy, but what you want to do is you want to go to our website, and then just go. Let's check this out. So if you go to our website, you could contact one of our sales reps. You click on Contact Us. You want to go to How to Buy. You want to go click on Contact Sales, and basically you'll need to give them an idea of how many records you want to process, and then they could get back to you with the pricing information that you guys need.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Do you provide ownership information, like who owns a certain property?
Yeah, so we could provide back the owner's name and address. As I did this in a demo, you could pass an address, get back the owner's information. Regarding do we provide residential information? We do provide basically whatever the county has. We have that. Regarding property information, you're probably not going to get any better than that because this comes directly from the county. I mean, if the county doesn't have that property recorded in there, then probably no one else is going to have it.
Okay, thank you. How do you know that a property has an absentee owner?
So the property web service does return back a field that will indicate whether the owner is an absentee. Basically, again, the data comes from the county assessors and the county recorder. So they would have the information regarding whether the owner is an absentee owner if they don't live there. They would have to report to them if if it's an absentee owner, and basically we report back what the county returns.
Thank you. How can I find a merge and purge list? I like all the info you can provide. However, can we pre-screen it to a shorter, more focused list?
Yeah, so for that, again, we do offer a list service, as I did a little demo on that just shortly ago. Basically, you can specify which area you want to get property information from. And then in addition to just the location, you can specify which parameters you want to search properties based on. So again, you can search properties based on their selling range, what the property type was, etc.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question, how often do you update your data?
So that's a good question. Basically, we update our data every week. Again, we get our data from the county recorders or the clerk's office. So each week we're getting new deeds, and then basically we take the latest deed and then apply it. Just one thing to note, there may be like a little delay in what the county has versus what we have. Basically, it takes probably it takes some time for the county. It takes some time to collect the data from the county, and then what happens is then once we have that data, it takes some time to merge it into our database, basically determine which is the latest deed. So there may be like a 1 or a 2 week delay between what the county has and then what we have. But basically, it gets updated every week. Every week we get new deeds.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. It looks like that's all the time we have. We did get a couple more questions last minute, so we have archived those, and Kevin will answer your question via email. For any additional questions, his email address is on the screen, so feel free to send him an email. He'd love to hear from you guys. And just want to thank you again for attending today. All our upcoming webinars are on our homepage at melissadata.com on the news and events section. So we hope you can check those out, maybe sign up for another webinar. And have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time.